This gentleman had himself a day yesterday betting the NBA draft. If you heard him on the show earlier this week, I think he kind of hit everything. He'll tell us if he didn't. It's Drew Dinsick, everybody, from both the Deep Dive and Bet the Edge podcast from NBC Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at whale_capper. Drew, congratulations, man, on a great day.
Yeah, it wasn't the drama of last year, and some of the lotto ticket stuff that I had that would have been like outrageously profitable didn't come through, but really quite an amazing day. A lot of chatter this morning about draft betting in general and some of the information that was coming out, and the way that markets were, volatile in the morning yesterday. And I don't know that I entirely agree with all the sentiment out there.
Let's talk about that, because I floated some stuff earlier today. My whole thing was and I went through the whole timeline of how the market moved up and down yesterday. And at 12:10 p.m., Woj doubled down on his conviction that the Charlotte Hornets, which he reported 2 days earlier, were, solidifying was his word, solidifying their position. He said on Brandon Miller at number 2. And then yesterday, when the market was completely against him, he was like, it's Brandon Miller. And he almost looked into the camera like Woj was doing a lot of passive-aggressive, you're wrong, Shams, I'm right yesterday. And the whole market move started because of a 9:13 a.m. Pacific, 12:13 Eastern p.m. Pacific tweet from Shams, where he said that Scoot was gaining momentum. Those were his words at number 2. And I sort of threw out that, first of all, what I thought yesterday at 12:10 was, I was like, you know what? I think the market moved a little bit because in case there was a trade, some bettors jumped in on big plus money on Scoot, and Shams ran with that. This is just me thinking out loud. I think Shams ran with it, and that's what created the massive market move. And in the end, his tweet, Drew, the way that it was worded, was just a free roll on the audience. You don't buy that, or you do?
No, that's, yeah. I think that's probably, pretty close. I guess the way that I understand the way things break down, and in general, the sentiment that I get when Woj is kind of reporting information, he does, either it's his tone or his intention to come across as very certain, when in reality, I don't think it was that certain, because I believe that for the majority of yesterday, there were still negotiations between the Pelicans and the Charlotte Hornets for that pick.
A trade would have, that's what I said earlier. A trade would have beaten us for sure.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. And your point of people were out there playing Scoot at 3-1 because the trade was live is correct. 100% correct, because I was one of those people. But there is, Woj can't help himself. He comes across as this is from God. This is correct. And it wasn't 100% that Brandon Miller was going to go to when he was out there saying it. And so that did create an opportunity to get some pretty big prices on Scoot. And then I think there was a couple things going on with Shams. I don't think any of it was people are out there who bet on Scoot thinking Shams had the goods, and they're pissed, and they feel duped. They think he was doing it on behalf of FanDuel or whatever. No. I don't have any semblance that is the case. Almost certainly he's very, very, very well connected to Scoot's agent, and was, and in general, and actually maybe we'll table a little bit of this for a side discussion in a bit, but I think he saw the market moving. I agree. I think he knew that a trade was possible, and I think he was gambling. He was like, man, if I go out hard right now and I say Scoot, and it's maybe a 30% chance that the deal gets done and Pelicans take Scoot too, I'm going to look right, and Woj is going to be wrong, and I can kill the king.
Exactly what I said earlier. Exactly.
And
yes.
And if he's wrong, if the 70% comes through and it's, the Hornets stick with it and they take Miller, people don't care. He's already number 2. He's already the second best guy.
Not only that, Drew, he said gaining momentum, right? So he had this. Sure. So he had this. He had this phraseology where he could say, "Like, I didn't say they were going to pick him. I just said it was gaining momentum."
Sure. And yeah, the idea that the market overreacts to all this stuff that should surprise no one who's been betting the draft for more than 5 minutes. That's because right. It's a super illiquid market.
That's right.
It is so hard to get a bet down. If I wanted a full-size stake on any sort of draft prop, I have to click 10 times at offshore. And that they have the auto mover set to max power,
yes.
which means it makes it look like an absolute runaway when it's just I'm kind of mid-level staking. I'm not an end boss by any stretch of the imagination in any of these markets. But if I want a meaningful stake, I have to click it a bunch of times, and that looks like runaway information when in reality it's just an illiquid market.
Drew, I said two days ago. 2 days ago when I mentioned this on air, when I bet Brandon Miller to go 5 times. I literally felt like I was the only human being on earth moving the market globally. And you're right. And I said it. I go, they limit
exactly.
They limit they cap your winning on every bet, so you have to rebet it. And every time you bet it, it drops on you. You're allowed to rebet it, but it will drop on you. So yes, I mean that's a play. I do want to go back before we forget to go back to the point about that he is associated with the sports book, because I brought it up earlier and I said I don't know that to be the case, but it does open himself up to that kind of chatter. And so I do think that is a reasonable way to phrase it.
That's because anytime you're dabbling in this space, and particularly with sort of this kind of inexperienced group of new players who are betting at FanDuel, you're going to make people upset. Like, people are going to be pissed and they're going to hold a grudge. They're going to demand refunds, blah, blah, blah. Like, I kind of look at draft betting in general, both the NFL and the NBA draft, as a little bit of like, or at least I feel like the books should treat this as like, player bonus type of, opportunities, right? Like anyone that won money that's betting at these, legal shops yesterday, betting on the draft, they're going to donk it on baseball between now and when football gets here, or they're going to lose it on football.
Of course they are.
That's right. Nobody's getting withdrawing, some winnings from, yesterday's action and, going and buying a house. Like, that's not happening. Like it's all going to come right back. And, you try to keep your players happy so that they continue to play. This type of stuff where the guy that you have that's on air, that's on, particularly on McAfee's show, who has this, outsized effect at a specific sports book, it is fraught with issues because, if you burn those players too many times and they stop reloading their accounts, then, you've done yourself an enormous disservice as a going concern. I think that's very, very true. But, it still is again, Shams is in the business of shams.
Shams is in the shams business, right?
And he is, for all we know, we could wake up tomorrow and, now he actually works for Scoot's agency. It turns out, he's out of the NBA info business. Now he's an agent. That wouldn't shock me. Like, it is entirely an agent-driven market now in the NBA. And I think this is kind of the last point I wanted to make and talk about a little bit is the information coming from teams that's valid and reliable has gotten to a dribble. Because I feel like there's almost certainly every staffer, every intern had this, the life scared out of them about, sharing anything valuable, because they probably have tracking software in their phones that's keeping track of texts and messages. And the association, the NFL, for sure, the NFL, we know this as this is now clear as day, considering what they're doing to some of the players, that they're keeping very close track of what these people are doing in terms of sharing information, because they're concerned about, the integrity of the game. And that's fine. And so almost kind of believe it when I say that all of the speculation, all the information, all the stuff we talk about betting the draft is coming from agents, and it's coming from players who have not been drafted yet in their AAU teams, coaches, families, right? And it is very, very weak. And has to be, you have to have as much of it as possible and just put the puzzle together yourself. None of it is ever real. That's because right. Agents have motive, they have their own motive. Their agents are in the agent business and players are in the player business. And so everybody's kind of telling you what they want to tell you for reasons. And so you just basically hope that you have one more piece of the puzzle than the market broadly, so that you can, get winning bets down.
And we're going to have to go to break, but Drew was kind enough to stay with us for 2. And that begs the question, the obvious follow-up question to all of that then is, will we look back on this day and age, NFL draft this year being an exception, but other than that, NBA drafts and NFL drafts to this point have been spectacular. for most bettors. Will we look back on this as the golden age of draft betting, and it won't quite be like this moving forward?
I have a hot take on this.
This is from It's Not Juice If You Win. He says, what are your thoughts on the guy who bet $400K to win $2K on Victor going number 1? I believe that was at DraftKings. Hey, man, if they're going to take the bet, that was about as that's about as sure of a thing as there ever has been in sports betting. And you'd have to like try to invent a scenario where that didn't go down. Like if he got injured yesterday, they'd still draft him. So I mean, good for the bet. Good for now. Is it something I would do? No, it is not. But good on the guy who did it. That he got his money. Jesse Welsh, that clarification, quote unquote, of the reservation not being in regards to the sushi spot feels an awful lot like Shams' tweet yesterday morning, Gilly. Just saying. New York Mets 16. Gill, Adam Finkelstein did not necessarily like the Heat selection of Jaquez. I, like you, thought he is so a Miami player. It's the first thing I thought of. Chance Copperpot. I'm not going to lie. I was heavy on Scoot, too. After listening to the show yesterday, though, and watching the line move, I took Miller, came out ahead, just keep hearing Gill's voice in my head. No way I was going to leave the draft with egg on my face. Thank you. Good for you. Nate King, I can't wait to see the reactions when the Mentalist comes back on the show and we learn that the sushi spot is a gas station, tire repair shop 2 blocks off the strip. Nah, that won't be it. But that would be a bit. Get O's the Mentalist back on here and see if he can figure out my sushi spot.
So I have a question for you, Gil.
Yes, sir.
So we were talking about like something as sure as it was last night.
Yeah.
What about the LeBron James draft? He went number 1 overall.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that was as sure a thing as maybe this one was?
Yes.
Or what do you think?
Yes, it was. 100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm looking at it right now. He went number 1, and then Darko
Milicic, yes.
But the other big names were Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade.
It was one of the great drafts of all time.
Yep.
One of the great drafts of all time. But yes, it was just as sure of a thing. And it required, listen, nothing. Here's the thing. Nothing is 100%, right? It could be 99.99999. So still requires onions for people to do such a thing. But good on DraftKings for taking that bet. Drew Dinsick, kind enough to join us here to talk more NBA draft. By the way, that Kudermetova-Alexandrova match has been postponed till tomorrow because I think there is rain in Berlin. So all of those bets stand. That's for tomorrow. I still am on Greek Sport. Did you have any Greek Sport is still the pick today in Halle? Do you have any tennis plays today, Drew?
I was not in the mind space where I could handicap tennis last night or this morning, so I did not.
I totally get it. Back to the question I asked at the end of last segment. I'll recap it for people, which is because Drew was talking about how reliable information on these drafts is becoming scarcer and scarcer, more narrow, if you will, as these drafts progress. And we see it in the NFL with them cracking down on players and leaks and all kinds of things. So it begets the question, which is, okay, so are we going to look back on these years of betting the NBA and NFL drafts, which again, with the exception of this year's NFL draft, have been just bangers for all of us? Are we going to look back on this as the golden age of betting them, or will this continue?
I think that there is a segment of the population that was getting information from team sources that is going to look back and be like, wow, I can't believe how good it used to be. And, for those people, they will say that was the golden age. But for us who like to literally grind the information and try to solve the puzzle and truly handicap it as a market, I think we're entering the golden age because we don't have that aspect where we're fighting for positions against people who do have team inside information. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But
we're on the cusp of the golden age for the people who treat this as a true handicap.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
Yes, but I guess let me rephrase it then. Do you though? And I go, well, let's talk about the one. I can't remember how you did on the NFL draft this year, but I lost on the NFL draft, and I always said, one of these is going to show up and we're going to lose. We're not guaranteed to win. One of these is going to show up, and finally it did with this year's NFL draft. There was a moment 1 or 2 years, 2 years ago, let's say, where I don't even know if I have that thought, Drew, where I'm like, oh, I'm going to win on all these because I'm going to have the better information and I'm going to win all these. But, as the years went on, I was like, no, we're going to run into one that we're going to lose. The likelihood of that happening is going to increase, yes?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No doubt about it. I would say in the next 10 cycles here, so the next 5 years, 2 drafts, NBA, NFL draft, I would expect I would have something like 7 out of 10 winning drafts.
Still a good way to bet.
Yeah. But like kind of going back to the point, like the people, because back in the day, if you had inside information from a team and you wanted to, or if you were an intern or in the research room and you were like, we're gonna take blank, you needed to find somebody in an alley who had access to 100 PPHs and to get anything, and you got like a 5K referral fee or something like that, and then they turn around and they make 5 figures on it. And nowadays that's been completely, it's being policed aggressively. And so for those reasons, it's just has situations like yesterday. Like I cannot imagine in my, like in the, both of these last 2 drafts, really, it's amazing that the second overall pick was an unknown up until hours before it happened.
Yes.
Like that's crazy to me. Like even like the late steam on Brandon Miller, there was a point in time where you could have clicked away and gotten, 20K to win 20K you wanted at reasonable prices if you actually had the nuts on Miller. But the movements we saw were, I thought, largely people just kind of bouncing the books because they had taken Henderson at huge prices and they kind of couldn't believe their fortune that Miller was available at those prices. So it was basically people just kind of taking risk off, which makes total sense because it was pretty clear that there was still a lack of certainty. But the closer we got to the draft, the less likely a trade was going to happen, the more likely it was going to be Miller.
Well, that was the thing. I was like, betting against a trade is always pretty solid. Right.
Always good. But, kind of going back to real quick on the NFL draft, it was a losing draft for me. And I think largely it was because we had a little bit of an irrational actor in terms of the owner of the Houston Texans and what they were going to do with the 2 pick. But, that was pretty clearly an unknown up until hours before, up until minutes before they went live on, with the draft show. A guy that does not screw around or in the information space, in Adam Schefter, was on air on ESPN minutes before the draft went live, saying that it was going to be Will Anderson. And it's so I think that was a pretty unique sort of Black Swan-y type of deal where you just had a true unknown in terms of who was making the decision and where they were going to go until the very, very end. But I would say that most of the hard work you put in the weeks leading up to the draft, basically just correcting, going from what is sort of consensus, mock draft based on player evaluation and trying to figure out team need to, some sort of more closely tied to the way the teams actually feel about players. Like that process is very profitable and will continue to be profitable for years to come. Now, that's not to say that you're going to be able to make a ton of money on this, but is it realistic and aspirational to try to make a few K betting draft props?
100%,
of course,
100%.
And I think that's going to still be the case for the next couple of years, and we'll look back on this in the golden years. Once somebody gets better at solving the puzzle than we are doing it.
Well said. And again, I want to just shout out the books that do offer these bets, that do offer these markets in both the NBA and NFL drafts. We appreciate that they're able to view these, even if they view it as a loss leader, right? You'll win sometimes, but even if they view it,
they absolutely should lose as a loss leader.
They should.
You're keeping players in the game.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly,
yes.
What else? No. You're getting people. The NBA finals are over. If all you care about is betting the NBA, maybe you're dabbling in the WNBA right now. Maybe you're waiting for summer league. You're looking for something to put that bankroll, that balance to work.
Yes,
and give them an opportunity to play.
I've used that phrase so many times. Like other businesses subscribe to loss leaders. The fact that some books just refuse to even give that the thought for a second, right? Like that would be a good business decision. Is amazing to me. Real quick, because we only have 30 seconds. In the end, do you think Charlotte just asked for too much for number 2, and that's what happened?
Yeah, my understanding, and I saw some reliable-ish reports of what Charlotte was asking, what New Orleans was offering, and the gap was pretty big.
Pretty big, yeah. That's kind of what I thought. Okay. Drew, always fun, man. Congratulations. He hit a min at 4, a SAR at 5, Whitmore after 5.5. I mean, just all
that was a big one.
Fantastic. But it should tell, not in the headspace to handicap tennis should tell you everything. Thank you, Drew. Well done.
Hey, best luck, guys. Enjoy the day.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.